Joined once again by Mike Fiorito on his new book, UFO Symphonic Journeys into Sound. It's awesome. It's not what you'd expect from a UFO book, and we talk about it right here. Check it out. Man, I mean, music. I mean, the first book was Red. I liked how it was fictionalized, right? It was like from the fictionalized perspective,
Yeah,
but like this gets into kind of, since, we're talking about music, I mean, that's kind of, it's like you say, it opens up a whole new paradigm. It's like a whole new, and it's weird, man, because I saw something today that I found this orca, this whale is able to say hello and count to three in like English.
interesting.
And it's like they got this document, they got a video. I watched it in this video. It's like, oh my God, this is bizarre, right? But they sing too, right? And they have a language that's
What I
singing,
was
and
going to
like,
say, yeah.
yeah. So like that's a whole nother language.
Hmm.
Like music, I think is a whole nother language. And like, how would you, as a non-human species, music unites people, man, in a way that's amazing. That's
Yeah.
it's paradigm shifting.
Y- Yeah. And, what if, they can't hear, but maybe it's perceived in some other way, maybe it's like ocean water splashing over us or like light or something and,
Yeah,
or
yeah.
just something else.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. But that's cool that it was, since you have
Thank you.
this love of music and you've done, that's kind of been your jam forever. And, your first book, was specifically about music, a musician. And then, you transition into I don't think it's your second book, but your first book on UFOs anyway. I'll say that,
Yeah. I started writing, like, it's funny story, just
Mm,
as a little,
mm-hmm.
to interject there.
Yeah.
I wrote a collection. I mean, I've always been interested in UFOs, but not in ufology in the way I've picked it up since.
Yeah.
But I wrote a book of it's short stories called Falling from Trees.
Hmm.
I wrote this book, and then I read Jeff Kripal's book. I
Oh
read
yeah.
The Flip,
Yeah.
and it was weird because I wrote to Jeff and I said, it's very strange, but I've just finished a book, and what I was looking for was something to kind of, because you just finished a book, you need some new energy source to sort of rev you up. And
Right.
so I read Jeff's book, and I said, I feel like I read your book before I wrote the book that just published,
Yeah.
And he said, by the way, that happens all the time. Read Time Loops by Eric Wargo. And, that began our correspondence. But in
Yeah.
that book, it has several stories that have non-human intelligence and the kind of speculative stories about the future of human intelligence,
Hmm.
the future evolution of humankind, and of course these are very much extraterrestrial type stories. But the thing is that I didn't really know anything. I had not yet read, John Keel. I had not
Right.
yet read, Strieber. I'd not, the list.
Valet,
Of,
right? You got into that, right? Exactly.
and then I went on like a wild, just tear, just a maniac tear. And, actually my book collection
Yeah.
proudly sits before me, along with, as you noticed in the book, as you've read it, my experiences, other people's experiences,
Right.
experience or accounts, which are they're very highly diverse.
Vast. They're
Um,
vast, right? Yeah, definitely. They're all over the board, all over the map.
right. And, I think, in general, people are attracted to kind of things that, in a sense, that don't have common sense reasons for occurring.
Hmm.
People are attracted to that. They're
You think it's the mystery of it all? Like they're trying to solve for something that, like I'm going to be the one that cracked the code? Or you think that they see something in themselves that kind of like, reflects that?
Yeah, I kind of think it's very subjective because
Hmm.
some
Right.
people see the unknown. I mean, look at where we stand as a culture in general.
Hmm.
The idea of, the predominant view of science is scientism or materialism, is that no, everything is knowable. We're
Hmm.
just working out the kinks of the mathematics. And then there's the other side that says, I mean, now with dark matter, it's like now we've gone to 95% of the universe is not known.
Yeah.
We're sort of,
Oops.
yeah, right, exactly. It's like, whoa, what happened there?
Yeah.
But,
And then quantum
you know,
entanglement and retrocausality and add all these other things in there. And it's like,
right. retrocausality. I mean, that is mind blowing. And I know
It's
Dean
hard to
Radin has
wrap your
done.
right. It's hard to wrap your mind around it. I
Yeah,
tried to explain it to my wife, and she's like, "What?" I'm like,
right,
okay, so your future
right.
self's telling yourself right now something that already happened. And what?
But you just what you just said. That's exactly how I felt when I after I read Jeff's book, and it's like it's as if the me reading that book told to me before I wrote the book that I had just written. And then you think, you and I, we know because we've talked this. You realize looking back in the rearview mirror, man, there's
Right.
a lot of things that kind of fit and slot into place, and you say, I feel really this kind of loop of this time loop of this kid I was who did these crazy things with my friend, and we just had these experiences
Yeah.
with friends, and then they became stories that are kind of like literary.
Right.
And I mean, we were just two schmucks doing stupid things. Although on some level, and I swear on some level, I always felt like my friend Lan and I, we were, you know, I think we were not exceptional really, but we felt exceptional. We felt like, wow, we're like superheroes.
Yeah.
We would go to the roof where I lived and grew up in an apartment building, and it looked across to the Manhattan skyline.
Oh yeah.
And here we were, two kids in a project building. So the projects in New York City is like
Mm-hmm.
nearly the lowest you could go in terms of socioeconomic.
Mm-hmm.
And here we are, atop, this roof, looking at this bejeweled skyline and thinking like, wow, aren't we lucky?
Right.
How cool is this? Uh,
It's all perspective, man. I mean, that's kind of like, like I was, a little bit late for us getting started, and I'm like rushing around, and I'm like, before I'd get all amped up, and I notice that you just get like upset, and and then shit starts falling off the shelves and you're breaking stuff, and it just gets worse and it's worse. And
yeah.
like, it's just past few weeks I've been kind of like, ever since really the holidays, I'm just kind of like, what? Just let it roll, man. I mean, like, no use
Cool.
getting upset. What's it gonna do? Well, I mean, like, like, before I would, like just, man, it would just, I'd drop something, man, I go pick that up, and now I'm like, you know what? It's gonna be there for a hot minute. Like, you know what I mean? Like it's not,
Right.
and I don't think it's like, and I kind of like, part of me feels like I'm being lazy, but the other part is like, man, like, maybe I've been sweating the small stuff for so long that maybe I just need to let some of that shit go and get back to the old ways. Like, when like when you're younger and you're just like, you didn't have all these
Hmm.
preconceived notions, and you felt more. I think that's kind of how I felt anyway. You felt more like when
Yeah.
like in what you said with music, when songs, like you said, it's speaking of a time loop, man, it'll put you right back there the first time you heard a song, you
Hmm.
know. Uh it's stupid, but Blink 182's What's My Age Again. I was 17 years old. I was like the youngest guy at a rock station, working at like full time as a rock DJ, 17 in Dayton, Ohio.
Wow.
I was like overnights, right? So midnight to 6. And then I produced the morning show from 6 until, noon. Like I didn't sleep for years, right? But I was 17, and they gave me a shot, and it was awesome, right? But I remember getting like promo CDs, like, so before like the albums were released, the labels would send all the music to the radio stations and be like, oh, here, this is a promo, this is coming out in 2 months or whatever, or a month, and or they'll send you the singles and stuff, and the program manager was like, here, kid, listen to all this stuff, tell me what you think is good, and I remember grabbing Blink 182's second CD, Enema of the State, and
Hmm.
I remember sticking that in, my 95. See, you go right back to it, man. It's my 95 Civic with the moonroof. I thought it was the coolest thing in the
Yeah.
world, right? And then like I'm cruising into work at like 10 p.m. in a hot spring or summer day, and that just jamming out. The first time I
Hmm.
heard that song, and I'm like, this is going to be huge. I love this song. This is amazing. But like when I hear that now, it just takes me exactly back to that spot. I'm in that
Right.
Honda. I'm on that road. I'm in Dayton, and I'm driving to work at like 10:30 at night. And like I think that's magical, right? I think that's kind of,
Complete magic.
yeah.
Yeah, complete. I mean, you just said like you didn't even realize you were going to say 95 Civic. It
Mm,
just rolled off your tongue.
yeah, yeah.
It's I think I say in the book that music like a UFO is a transport system. I think Josh Cutchin said that the UFO is like a transportation system. Everyone is going somewhere all the time, it
Yeah,
seems.
yeah, yeah.
The aliens are going somewhere. The visitors, we're going. They'll be taking. They're dropping us off.
Right.
but there is this thing. It is a transport system, and it's emotional.
Hmm.
I mean, which a lot of the stuff, even when you get down to this topic, the phenomena,
Right.
which the UFO is, was spoken in that wheel,
Right.
it often is very emotional, and
Of
that's
course.
not to say that it doesn't mean it's emotional. It probably opens you up. You're porous. You're hearing. You're listening.
Right.
You're feeling, and for whatever reason,
Yeah. Yeah.
whatever just happened, you know.
And it imprints you on the same thing. I know, like you get into the Monroe Institute, and you have all that and binaural beats, all those things that we found out through experimentation or science or whatever that those things do affect us subconsciously, consciously.
Hmm.
We all, like I think you were talking about birds at one point. Maybe it was in yeah, I watched you and Ian Doley on Engaging the Phenomenon, and I think maybe that put like birds, right? Like that,
Yeah,
just hearing that, is something, right? I mean, all those things, the sounds of birds is equate you to spring or summertime or whatever. Like, the simple sounds of nature can take you back to a place in time, just like music does. And I think that's
yeah.
interesting,
And there's
that's
information
transportive. Oh
in
yeah.
both. Like in
Right.
both, there's information in that. And I probably said this with James too.
Yeah.
And it's funny when I was talking to James, I had my window open. Talk about like running. I was running late.
Hmm. Hmm.
I left my window open and I was freezing the whole time because I didn't want to like get up and shut the window, which I should have done. So I was
Yeah.
like freezing the whole time.
That's
Um,
funny.
but the idea, like you said, that music or birds, let's take them one at a time.
Yeah, yeah.
When you hear music, it's it doesn't come from nowhere. It comes from somewhere.
Right.
Led Zeppelin took the music of the Delta blues, took the British Isles music, and put it on a canvas of rock and roll with very different sounds. Like,
Right.
but it's this composite of so many things,
Hmm.
and there's deep history in that. I mean, that's information into just in of itself, and then there's the just the fact of music as mathematical frequencies, as
Hmm.
those kinds of things. There's information.
Harmonics and all. Yeah, like
Yeah,
yeah, it's all.
exactly.
Yeah, and it's amazing when you look at some of these. Grant Cameron wrote a book called oh shit, Magic
Was
is in
it
the.
Tuning In?
I think it
He
might have
wrote
been.
Tuned In. I think it was him. About he
Yeah.
has anecdotes of musicians who've had UFO experiences.
Yeah, yeah, and
Hmm.
it was like the messages in the music. I think might have been part of it too. Where it was basically like like after the gold rush, Neil Young. It's like where did somebody asked him where did that song come from? He's like I have no idea. Like
Right.
it just came to me. Like and you hear that through everything. In the music, it's like I just sit down and like you're just a lot of musicians are like I'm just the conduit, right? It just comes through. Bob
Yeah.
Dylan's famous had like a 60 minutes thing where it's like I used to be able to
Right.
write stuff like that and I can't do it. I'm not the same guy. I can't
Yeah.
do it anymore, And then a lot of people that are inventors and like Nikola Tesla said you'd be like walking in the park and just have a whole full formed invention come to them, like the whole entire plan, the blueprints, and like other people have said that before, scientists and inventors and things like that. And music, especially in music where people are just jamming. I mean, you're a music, how we just get a group of people, guys or girls together that are like you're hanging out and you each have your own instruments and you're playing, but you somehow find this groove or you're all on like the
Hmm.
same wavelength or you kind of tune into each other and then it's like you're not even doing it like your hands are going you're singing whatever it's just kind of just taking its own ride and you're just kind of
Hmm.
there, right? You're the fingers or whatever,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
And that happens a lot, and then it's kind of like when you turn that into like, well, is that consciousness? Is that part of that whole thing? And I think it is. And I think that, it's interesting that you never have anybody that, abduction experiences get on a ship. It's like, yeah, they were playing Led Zeppelin. You get on this ship, it's like, yeah, no, there's no PA and they're not playing like, Molly Hatchet or anything. It's like, nobody says anything about the audio of anything, and after looking at it's one of those things that maybe I should do some more research on. Like nobody explains any, they'll have the audio thing that stands out for me is like any type of close encounters is just like a low hum or like like an audible hum or hum when they're close to a craft or something like that, but nobody
Yeah.
says they get into a craft and they're playing Twisted Sister, you know.
There was Twisted Sister would be interesting. There was I read gosh I'm forgetting his name, Orfeo Angelucci, I think his name was,
That's not a
and
name
he
you
was
forget.
yeah I may be getting it wrong, but
Yeah.
he the way I found him was through Carl Jung wrote about him,
Okay.
and he wrote about him. He had a he had an encounter. He had many experiences, and one of the things that he said in his excellent book, I highly recommend it.
Mhm.
It was, I think, I may be wrong, maybe written in the 50s or early 60s.
Mhm.
It was kind of I think he was a machinist. You know, he was a regular guy, didn't
Yeah.
have any background like this, but he had some experiences where he was abducted.
Mm.
And then what he said is when he went aboard this kind of this incredibly beautiful spaceship, no rivets, just this sort of translucent object, and he heard beautiful music, and
Oh
he was
wow.
hearing this beautiful symphonic, this like voice of angels, and
Oh
it was
wow.
just gorgeous. And some people do have that experience, but you're right, it's just as common that they don't, or maybe
Right.
more common that they just have this kind of eerie silence.
Right.
um,
And that's saying something too, right? I mean, that there's a lot of, there's a lot of to be said about the silence there or
Yeah,
the
what
lack of.
frequency is it? You know, what
Yeah.
is it? What kind of hum is it? What is it a binaural, that'd be interesting to know if, how could you you'd have to have perfect pitch to remember what that frequency is if you could repeat it.
Right. Well, that's
Um,
another question. Like if you're like I'm just thinking this out loud. Sorry, we're just kind of jamming, but like
yeah,
deaf
not,
people. Like, has there been anybody that's deaf that's been abducted? Like, is that a different experience or blind? Like, people with,
yeah,
I mean,
I'm sure there have.
yeah,
I'm sure there have, and that would be interesting
just,
to hear what they have to say.
hmm
But what's interesting is that the phenomena can, it can, it doesn't have to be through just a song. It
right,
could be through drumming. It could
hmm
be through chanting,
hmm
or sound is just very captivating. And however we might hear it, everything makes sound. Like
right,
rocks have a frequency.
right.
Everything does.
My knuckles.
Knuckles, yeah, yeah, exactly. Like I tell, my son, I'm gonna,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
keep it up.
to the moon.
Right,
Yeah,
right, to the moon, Alice.
yeah,
Uh, but there's that interesting thing that everything is kind of is making a sound in some way.
hmm
And in the book, I have to tell you, John, the book was, for me, was a discovery process. It's not.
Oh, I bet.
I had an initial idea.
hmm
I get obsessed with an idea. I get obsessed with something, and then I kind of just think about it and swim in it, and I just, and I
Research and you just dive in, right? Yeah,
exactly,
yeah,
and
yeah.
I'm overwhelmed. I'm like, it's just
Oh,
too
yeah.
much of everything,
Yep.
but you
I
can't
know.
put everything in.
hmm I know, I know, I know. But you dive into, I mean, we've talked, it's been almost a year, I think, maybe.
It's been a while, yeah,
Yeah. And like, I've been writing my book since then. And I'm like, this book can't be 500 pages. Like, nobody's
right,
going to
right.
read it. Like it's, but I find all this stuff. I'm like, well, shit, this is good too. And I can't put that in there. And I got to take this out. And, this is going to be like a 3-book series or something at this point. Like, there's no way you can just cram
I
it
was
into
gonna
one.
I was gonna say, so having gone through this experience,
Yeah.
I'm just like a guy who, it's like I'm a plumber who's fixed, toilet bowls before.
Yeah.
So, I'm not a genius. I've just done it a few times, and you kind of know, okay, this is what I'm going to show up. I'm going to wear knee pads because I don't want to, be
Yeah.
on my
Right.
knees and hurt my knees on a hard floor, and etc. But with books, with the having a really good outline,
Yeah.
and then realizing, okay, I love this. I'm so enamored of this thing. This is
Right.
incredible. Next book, it just, you know, and that's the good thing, right? Now
It's
you
just
put
to
it out
know
there.
that, yeah, that you're like, this is the next thing, right? That's to kind of spur you on to the next. to the
You know,
next thing. Yeah.
you kind of hope. I mean, it's funny because you end a book and you just say, "Am I ever going to be able to think anything, again, anything new?" Because it's such an exhausting thing when you
Oh
get to the
yeah.
end of it.
Yeah,
And I
yeah.
mean, technically, I'm not, technically, I mean, the book is out.
Yeah.
What I mean is, it's been out for. I've had copies. I've sent copies
Hmm.
out.
Hmm.
It publishes February 1st, but
Right.
if anyone wants a copy, I still do have a few copies that I had for to send to reviewers and podcasters and stuff.
Yeah.
But the work continues.
Right. Right. It never really, I mean, you can, I've seen books that come out, the revision too, it's like, oh yeah, the updated
Oh
version,
yeah,
you always want to throw some things in there. As soon as it goes out, you're like, shit, I should have put that in
yeah,
there.
exactly.
You're
It's
like,
like, oh God, I can't believe it got.
yeah, yeah.
Um, what just today? I don't know if you know who Stephen Halpern is.
It's,
Uh,
yes, it does sound familiar.
New Age music guy. He's like one of the founding fathers of New Age.
Okay.
And I started listening to his stuff, I don't know, 20 something years ago, 30 years ago.
Okay.
And it's cool. There was a time when you went into a music store, when there were music stores, and there was a new age section
Oh
or
yeah, yeah.
ambient.
Ambient. Yeah,
And
yeah, yeah.
that's where I found Stephen Halpern. And anyway, through a series of mutual friendships, I was made an introduction, and I sent him the book. And he wrote something. I said, "May I blurb that? Would that be okay?" And that blurb is now on the back of the book as of today.
Nice.
So isn't that cool? And
That's rad. That's so rad. Yeah.
he goes, "I got to stop reading your book." He said, I'm reading it and I'm feeling it's just there's too much commonality to what I'm working on. So I want to put it
Wow.
down so it doesn't, corrupt what I'm working on." He's working on a kind of memoirish thing,
Oh, rad.
but we hit a lot of the same stuff. He writes about binaural beats, and he has music out of just binaural beats.
That's rad. That's rad. And so
So isn't that cool?
retro causality things happening again, right?
Exactly.
It's like I already read your book in my head, so I'm already
Right.
putting it out
Exactly.
there. Yeah.
Well, there was one I was listening. I'm in the Bay Area. This is, I don't remember, something like 20 years ago. I'm in the Bay Area.
Yeah.
I'm in Marin County. I'm visiting a friend in San Rafael or Fairfax. I'm in Fairfax. And there's a strip on Fairfax that's just, it's the coolest thing.
Mhm.
It's like great bookstores, and it's a lovely, beautiful place where, like highly enlightened people, it seems, with a lot of money live, just because everything is so nice.
Right, right,
And
right.
I'm in this cafe and I'm hearing, I think it was Inner Peace. And
Hmm.
I said, that was the name of the album, but I didn't know it at the time. I said, "Oh man, this is great." And I go up to the guy. I told Stephen Halpern this. I go up to the guy and I said, "Excuse me, what is this album? I really like it." He goes, "Oh, it's Inner Peace." And oh God, that is so good. He goes, "You like it so much. Why don't you take it?" And
That's
it was
so
like,
rad. He just handed you the
he
disc.
just gave
Like,
me the disc. I mean, and it wasn't like he was saying, "I don't like it." He
uh-uh.
was like, "You are so enthusiastic about this. I'm just going to give it to you."
That's so rad.
Isn't that cool? And
That's
Stephen
awesome.
liked that. He liked that story that, he just gifted by the enthusiasm I felt for that one album. It reminds me at least a lot of Pink Floyd.
Well, that's like
Uh,
another thing that we were just talking about. So that just took you exactly. I mean, you could probably tell me you were sitting there. It was probably
yeah,
whatever kind of day it was. You were doing whatever. Like you can tell me what you felt like. Like it's
yeah.
transported you right back to that.
You
It's
know,
amazing.
I think we often we don't realize it, but some people more than others we think in music.
Oh
It's
yeah, we
I
do.
think Einstein said something like, I daydream in music. I see my life in terms of music.
Yeah,
He was a violin player.
right. Yeah, I
Um,
remember, and it wasn't bad, I guess, from what they say. Right?
yeah,
It wasn't
I don't.
horrible. It was-
Yeah, maybe he was a better violin player than mathematician because
that would be amazing.
supposedly he wasn't the greatest like mathematician in terms of doing the number crunching.
Hmm.
He
Hmm.
was great at the creative aspects of it
Right.
and seeing the connections and the correspondences and this kind of thing. But what do I know?
Pff, you
Uh,
can you can fool me. I don't know.
it's just something I read.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but yeah, and you'll notice in the book some of the things that people conveyed to me, they weren't expected. I wasn't
Right.
expecting someone to tell me that the magic of an instrument
Hmm.
and something that happened that connected them to someone no longer alive.
Yeah, the flute part, man, that was
The
wild.
flute.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow. That's just like that's a big, like, that's like saying something, that's like one of those synchronicity moments that, from beyond the grave kind of thing. And, I don't want,
Yeah.
it's just, so the, like, I mean, I guess we won't spoil it too much, but we'll talk a little bit about it if that's cool with you. I mean,
Yeah, please. It's okay.
basically the flute doesn't work, right? His wife or his partner passes and the flute doesn't work.
Mhm.
And it's in a box, and his buddy comes over, right? And it was just kind of like, hey, what's
Yep.
that? He's like, oh, it's, my wife. I can't remember if his wife's girlfriend. It's flute.
Yeah.
He picks it up and like it works. And then they
Right.
jam and they write a song, right? About it. Like, but then when he gets it, it doesn't work for
Right.
him, right? Like it goes to him and it's just like it's not working
Yeah,
for
that's
him.
it. You
So it's
you
like,
remembered it.
yeah, so
Um,
it's like, what the hell is that, right? Like that's a thing, like wild,
y-
right? So like what is that? It transcends, living and dead, and the functionality of device. I don't know, man. It's just wild, right? Like
yeah.
I'm glad that story was in there, and I'm glad they shared that with you because that's
Well,
awesome.
thank you. Thank you. Frank's a good friend and he's a part of the bluegrass community.
Hmm.
He's written songs, he's a photographer. And what
Wasn't she like a
preceded
physicist or something? Or like,
she
I'm sorry.
was, yeah, yeah, she has a PhD. She had
It,
a PhD in physics,
yeah,
but she
yeah.
was like beloved by all of the
Bluegrass community, right? Like,
yeah,
yeah, yeah,
Vassar
yeah.
Clements, all the people that were, at that time
Like
were
the
happening.
best. Yeah,
Really, and she
yeah,
was phenomenal. I mean, Sue
yeah.
was just incredible. I mean, she was perfect in terms of pitch and playing and technique,
Hmm.
but there was gushing emotion that when she played, it felt like the violin was crying. It
Hmm.
had that
Hmm.
power and
Yeah,
the
yeah,
love between them. And that's why I mentioned, emotion. So it's not just
yeah.
these
It's not
abstract things.
right, right,
Um,
right. It's like the actual, connections between the two. I just can't. I
yeah.
just was trying to find a reason why it wouldn't work for him.
Well, what's weird is that, yeah, I mean,
I don't.
someone else, someone I followed it up with a story that Dean Radin wrote, and I think the guy's name is Michael Shimmer. I forget his name, Shimmer.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember his name,
Hmm.
but he's a known debunker and kind of
Oh
materialist.
yeah, Schumer, Mike Schumer. Yeah,
Is it Schumer? And
yeah,
then
I think
he
so.
he wrote about the radio that when he got married and his wife.
Oh
Uh,
yeah.
his wife was very close to her uncle or some relative. It's funny you write a book and you can't remember all the details. And
Oh, I
there was
remember
a
this. Like, this radio didn't work forever, and it was like his wife's fathers or grandfathers or something like that, and didn't work on the day of the wedding. It was like working perfect. Like they came in during the wedding, and he's the biggest debunker in the world, and he's like, I can't rationalize this. This
right.
is like, it basically turned him into like, okay, well, maybe there's something there, and then after a short period of time, he just went right back to debunking. But still, but
Exactly. I
still, it
think he
changes
remains a
paradigm.
debunker.
Yeah, he remains a debunker for sure, for sure. But
Well,
yeah,
some people want to, it's I heard Bernardo Kastrup say this that some people want to feel like they've one-upped the universe. It's like, yeah, I
yeah,
figured you out,
yeah,
you
yeah.
know. Whereas I think to be in a state of unknowing is actually a great opportunity for creativity and for discovery. And I mean, like right now at this time, science, the major theories of science will be drastically reworked in say 500 years to the point where some of the ideas, I mean, Newton's math still works under certain conditions.
Hmm.
When we get to the subatomic level, it doesn't work. And there are other things that you could go into. I think you mentioned spookiness at a distance.
Yeah, yeah,
You
yeah.
mentioned,
Quantum, yeah, entanglement, yeah.
um, and so everything we know is going to be wrong. So is going to be right in a context. So to have this absolutism about knowledge, even
Is that,
science, is kind of kooky.
yeah, oh yeah, for sure. I mean, but one of the things that, speaking of music, like I said earlier, it really unites people, like people that from different races, creeds, colors,
Yeah.
ages. One of those things that where you just hear something like, but like the Beatles, like you said, the Beatles changed the world, whether you like it or not. That was a big deal, right? That was a
Yeah.
thing, right? But who's to say that somebody else comes along and does that. One of the things that I went to Angels and Airwave concert, which is Tom DeLonge. That was back in
Hmm.
shit, I don't know, 19 or something like that, right before the pandemic. And they during the set they play this thing, and it was like just basically a woman's voice, a female voice, come out and saying like during it's been scientifically proven during concerts, everybody, basically gets on the same wavelength and everybody's sharing the exact same experience like that. And everybody should enjoy it, and there's a clip, somebody recorded it out there, but that's kind of it. Everybody kind of gets into like when you're at a live event like that, where everybody's there and everybody's kind of sink into that same, wavelength. And it's everybody kind of, it's almost like a unity consciousness kind of in that
Yeah.
regard,
Yeah.
and it's pretty amazing that's actually proven and that's a thing, and, it's great because I think you can change the world that way, just love and
Yeah.
peace and stuff like that. But then the other part's true too. You can just go crazy death metal and just go, it's just bad.
Yeah.
It's just bad
Smash
too.
someone's head to bits
Yeah.
with a skull with a bone or something.
Yeah. I was at
Uh,
Woodstock 99 and everybody started setting shit on fire. And I'm like, what is
yeah.
going on? And I'm like, this is not how this should go down. Right. I mean, so it's the whole spectrum. And, I appreciate you doing it, man. The book's rad. I
Well,
can't
thank
wait for
you.
it to drop. I mean, it's soon. I mean, February 1st isn't right around the corner. And, you
St.
know,
Bridget's Day. So that was recommended because the publisher said, "Well, when do you want it to publish? Do you have any preferred?"
yeah.
We were months out, and I asked some friends, and they said, "Well, St. Bridget's Day. It's uh, she was friendly to fairies, and she's sort of Irish saint, even though she was a Catholic saint.
Hmm.
She still, had her toes in the pagan traditions, supposedly."
Perfect. Perfect.
And so, yeah, that was the inspiration for that. But to your point about music, it's very intersubjective.
It
So
is. It is.
we can. This happens even at like a sports event. We
Mm.
or a big event where we're all kind of focused in on something. It's a
Mhm.
game. It's music. Um, I mean, it could be a religious thing.
Mhm.
Uh, there's something that happens, and like you said, it could be for better or worse. I mean, you could
Right.
be whipped up into a frenzy. When you go to a game, you're like, get that guy, get him, tackle him. You're
Right. Right.
you're
Oh yeah. Do,
aggressive.
do, 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 do. Or like you think even like the drummer boys are, back
Right,
in,
right.
for battle, right? Like they're
Uh-huh.
banging the drum to get the guys to go, and
Yeah.
same kind of
And
thing,
using
right?
music, like they call them ululations, like "Ooh-la-la-la-la-la," that could be
Yeah.
used in battle cries and stuff
Right.
to stoke yourself and to get the gumption to go. I
Native
mean,
Americans did it as well. It was
yeah,
huge.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, to get me to go to like, and someone like me would had to had done that
Hmm.
in that circumstance, would have to take that knife and you know, go meet someone that, you know, it was decided that's your enemy.
Yeah.
And
It's so wow.
so, in any given circumstance, but, music has that power. And you talked about changing the world.
Yeah.
I mean, pretty much every big event we do is accompanied by music.
Of course.
Marriages, funerals, um, and it can cause. I mean, revolutions have music associated. There's usually
Of
a
course.
song with that. You say you wanna rev up. I'm joking there a little bit, but
But still, you still got national anthems, when everybody stands up and like, this is what we do. This is what we,
yeah,
everybody sings it, screams it, from
hand on the heart.
yep, staring at the flag. You got that whole thing. You got the sight, you got the visual, you got the audio, you
Right,
got the whole thing. Which is wild.
exactly.
It's like, where, how do you, but then there's all the subjugation that can come from inaudible frequencies and extremely low frequencies, and that's ELF waves and those things that you influence people at a distance and for
Right.
weaponry or whatever. And that should exist. We know that from Freedom of Information Acts, that's
Yep.
exist, I mean, so there's, like we said, it's the whole gamut, the thing that gets me. And so this thing might die in three minutes and I might have to start another one because I didn't re-up
Okay.
my subscription.
Sure. Or we could kind of, sometimes brief is good too. So
Oh
whatever's
yeah,
good
yeah,
for
yeah,
you.
yeah. So what I was what shit, I see. That's where I lose it. That's where I lost it. I was going with something that I thought was good.
I'm sorry I messed you up there.
No, 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 you didn't. That's fine. It was something about
Revolutions, music.
yeah, yeah. No, I lost it.
I think music is myth making. You know, when
It
it's
is.
it in the way that it's also myth kind of immersive. You know, we in the way that poetry or I like to use the word deliteralizing. So,
Oh,
because we're so on the nose with, I know this thing, and this is when you hear music, it takes you out of that. You're in that realm of there's a broader spectrum of what's known and what is not known, and why you feel you don't even know the way you feel sometimes,
no,
or uh, it has great possibility.
it does. It does.
And the thing that fascinated me, John, is that we don't even know why we do music. We don't really know it. We believe that music, that the ability to sing preceded the ability to talk.
Hmm.
So that
Interesting.
the anatomy of singing and actually gorillas, there are some primates. Gorillas have favorite munching songs, favorite eating songs.
Oh wow.
So their favorite foods are like,
Wow, that's cool.
and there are primates that communicate through oral communication, through singing,
It's amazing.
through making sounds with their mouths that aren't like grunts.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, and so this is proceeds so deep in our mysterious past, and that's what really attracts me to it is we just don't know why we do it. We don't know why we music.
Yeah, we don't
You
know any
know?
music, and we don't know if anybody else does either. I mean, like, you get the whole UFO thing, and it's like, well, is that how we're going to communicate? Is that the way like you said, that can we
Yeah,
communicate with them that way? Is that, I mean, do we play them the Beatles and then they're cool? Oh, you know what
yeah,
I mean? Or like, do
yeah.
they get it too? I mean, at that point, is it one of those things like that we have to work out? But
I have truly felt that there have been concerts I've been at, and I said, I really hope that the visitors are listening to this because this is the highest of what we could show as beings to say, here, please take this. But think of Close Encounters you mentioned, bum,
oh
bum,
yeah,
bum, bum, bum,
right, huge,
you know. And in 2001, you have the Thus Spoke Zarathustra, but there's that association, when the uh, what is he? Is he? I guess he's a monkey. I'm not sure,
oh right, yeah, yeah,
but they attack each other, and then he smashes one. Because he realizes, oh, this can be an instrument of a weapon,
right,
and he flings it into the sky, but then Kubrick takes the bone, and now it becomes a space station.
right,
Then this long, elongated thing is floating through the air, but I think it begins with um, the music starts there. Dun, dun, dun,
yeah,
dun, boom,
right,
boom, boom, boom. Uh, and there's the monolith. I mean, not to go all the way down there, but the
right.
monolith, which is inexplicable, unknown, and they're just sort of sniffing it and
Hmm. Hmm.
running at it fast and then running away.
Yeah. And then
Uh,
all those monoliths popped up during COVID. Remember that? Those people started popping up like these weird
yeah,
stainless steel
that's
monoliths, and
true.
nobody ever really like dug into I mean, somebody said they were doing it. Yeah, there was an art installation, but it was happening all over the place and it was weird. Just kind of get everybody's attention. Um,
Yeah, I mean things happen and people there's the extraordinary and the very uh a UFO flying over Phoenix is one thing,
right.
right? There's this extraordinary and just majestic and powerful and so many people are seeing it, but then things happen that are uncommon, all the time.
Hmm.
And things get misplaced or some synchronicity occurs and they're more mundane and maybe you don't think about it until you
Yeah.
start thinking about these things, and then you realize when you
Yeah.
start paying attention, you
That's when it
notice.
that's when it starts happening. And I did
Yeah.
remember what I was gonna, by the way.
Ah, great.
That's perfect synchron. So it was I was talking to Ryan Bledsoe. I don't know if you're Chris Bledsoe. He's an
Sure,
experiencer.
sure.
Yeah, yeah. So I was talking to Ryan, and this was years ago, right before we had his podcast and all this stuff, and we were talking about, um, uh, like basically having a song in your head, and it's this still happens to me nonstop, constantly, where I won't have it's not that I heard the song on the radio. It's not I heard the song in my car. It's not I'm playing the song and it comes in. It's just like I'll have a song in my head and I'll play the song in my head. And it'll be this song will just I'll be jamming to the song, in my head. And this
Hmm.
is what happens. And just it's just happening. And then consciously I'll pick up and like, oh yeah, this song is I like this song, I like it, whatever, and I'm jamming out to it. But it's not like, hey, yeah, I kind of want to listen to the song. And Ryan said to me that somebody told his dad at one time, I think he was going to NASA, and he's like, you go through these boxes, and he's like, just pick a song that that's all of the words, and the whole thing that's like 4 minutes long, and just keep that in your head, and just keep doing it, and you'll block whatever the readers are or whatever, right?
Mm.
Whatever. And I was like, wow, that's weird because like I'll have a song in my head all the time. I'm not doing it right. It's just there's just something jamming in my head all the time, and it's
Yeah.
like, am I subconsciously just jamming, like blocking things? Is it something? And I didn't.
Mm.
I've never asked the question. I don't know if people do this or not, but I'm like, I'll have a song all the time. I'll be in the shower and be like, oh, all right, we're listening, whatever this song is, and it's just rolling through my head. Like right
Mm.
now, when I'm talking to you, we're having this conversation. It's not happening, but as soon as I turn this thing off, I probably will have something jamming through my head, and it'll just be
Yeah.
random. It won't be anything that like sometimes it's like a weird song from the 80s that you don't even think about, you haven't heard in 15, 20 years, right? It just pops in
Hmm.
and you're jamming to it. So I don't know, have you had any experience like that? Have you like talked to anybody that has done that?
I'm drummer afflicted, so I'm
Mm,
always I'm
yeah.
always kind of there's
Dun,
always
dun,
a
tsh, tsh.
you know
Yeah.
yeah always in my head, and
Mhm.
it's annoying to some people actually. I mean, my brother
Mhm.
used to hate it. He would like clench his teeth, and he was my brother and I were very opposite. I
Right.
mean, we have a lot of similarities and we're close, but we're very different. He's more of like he was a math guy,
Mm,
whereas I was more of a literature and kind of language person,
right.
and just music person. I love music, so and he was not really that much into music. He was
Mhm.
okay, like top 40. We grew
Right,
up in the
right.
disco era and that kind
But
of
he wasn't
thing.
going out buying albums and like, this is
He
my
was
band.
not. He'd
Yeah.
never owned an album. He has never
Wow.
owned an album, and I had like I had the like latest music stuff, and I had music instruments and stuff.
Yeah.
And when I would just go like, and he would just start to clench his teeth, and I was, oh, sorry, sorry, you know. And even today, when I get in the car, if I start hitting on the steering wheel, and he'll give me a nasty look. I'm sorry, I just forgot. Uh,
It's
but
just the way your brain works, right? It's like just
it
kind of how it
is.
is. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and it's interesting that you said I read somewhere, and I don't know if it's absolutely true, but when you
Hmm.
humming blocks your so if you're worried about something and you start to hum,
Hmm.
it kind of stops you from thinking about stuff. Like your
Rudimented.
brain can't work the same way.
Yeah. It makes sense
And
when
so the
like when like you're yelling at the army guys, the Marines or whatever, when they're, I don't know, but I've been told, you're
yeah.
doing some stupid stuff that you don't want to be doing, right? You're jogging through the mud, the
Yeah,
rain or whatever, but you're focused on that mantra, that song that
right.
that keeps you going, right? That's kind of one of those things that probably does, right? That makes sense psychologically,
Definitely.
where
Well,
you're
like
just focused
prayer
on that. Yeah, prayer,
or
same way.
chanting,
Yeah,
or it could be like, let's go, Tino, let's go, well, that kind of
right,
thing.
right.
Or it could be, chanting, Om Mani
Oh,
Padme
yeah,
Om Mani
yeah.
Padme or whatever. It's interesting when you hear like Catholic prayers in Latin, they're very, very,
Guttural kind of a little bit, and some of it's more of like like
it
a
makes
deeper.
you, it's very meditative,
Hmm. Hmm.
and especially you hear, so I like Palestrina, and I wrote about him in the book.
Hmm.
And I went through a period where I was, my first wife, we separated, and before we, went down the whole divorce route. But I'd listened to Palestrina, but I hadn't listened to quite the way I was listening to him at that time.
Right.
And just all of these voices coming together. He is reputed to have saved polyphonic music. So
Wow.
voices that are it's if I'm doubling,
Hmm.
then we're hitting the same note. But if we're singing a different note, it's like that's how chords are formed. They're all harmonically connected.
Hmm.
The way that John and Paul would do they would do different notes and blending together, it would create harmonies.
Right.
And so he has these lush, and it's just voice,
Hmm. Hmm.
but it's like an ocean, these ocean tidal waves of voice coming together.
Right.
And it's very, and they would be Latin. They were, he was writing these during the Renaissance. Um, and they're very contemplative.
Mhm.
They take you away. You get dreamy. I love Palestrina, and I realize it's totally unhip, and yeah, my music tastes are, it's very broad, from Latin rhythms to Indian ragas to Indian classical music to rock and roll to bluegrass to,
Yeah.
even noise. I went to see Fred Frith. Fred Frith played with a group called Henry Cow, and it's kind of like it's kind of some of what he's playing. It's electronic stuff,
Hmm.
and he has there are keyboards, there are different kinds of percussion things and stuff that they've made.
Hmm.
So imagine you're playing a keyboard, but then there are guitar like fretboards that's just
Right.
a fretboard, and it's on this like platform.
Uh-huh.
The platform is mic'd, and so he had things like magnets and wires and stuff. So you have all these crazy sounds.
Wow.
And then someone, I think she was playing fiddle or cello, I forget, but there were three people playing together. And despite this, that it was kind of like noise,
Hmm.
it was chamber music. I mean, they're all very accomplished. And my wife looked at me after like 10 minutes. I was completely digging it. I'm like, this is awesome. She's like this, you owe me. You owe me. And, but it was like, you hear like, "Wah, wah, 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 wah," and then it would be captured electronically and synthesized. And
Looped and all kinds of
oh
stuff.
God, it was
Yeah.
so awesome. And then, he's taking like a magnet. You're like, but then, coming together in this uh, lovely way.
Yeah.
Um, and, why do I think all of this is important? Why is music, why is poetry, why is literature, why is that relevant to the UFO conversation? I think it's incredibly relevant. Um, and it's not, Jeff Kripal has written about this. There was an article today in some David Metcalf shared something on the Radio Mysterioso Facebook page.
Hmm.
I don't know if you're on that, and but it's a great page. People
Yeah.
contribute great stuff, and it was just about the humanities have tried to become like the sciences.
Mm.
So the humanities have tried to become like materialist and sort of
Hmm.
factual, and really where it's led is this postmodern cul-de-sac of dead stuff,
Mm.
really.
Hmm.
um, but where humanities and the phenomena coming together as they have been in previous
Forever.
times.
Yeah.
Yeah. um, but in our mainstream in academia, they're wrenched apart and separated, as if the humanities has to be pure. What humanities has done is it's sort of gotten itself into a place where it's not being funded.
Mm.
You have ChatGPT eating away at English. I'm teaching English composition, so
Mm.
I have to battle with
Jeez.
the students. They're 20 years old or so, and they're handing in. I can tell immediately. I mean,
Yeah.
there's going to
Of
come a
course.
time where I'm not going to be able to,
Right. Right.
but I make them write in notebooks. So first, I say, okay, we're going to write, and I give very narrow prompts
Right.
so that you can't. You can always chat GPT anything.
Right.
But I'll show them. I'll say, oh, let me just show you guys, just so you can see.
Yeah.
Let's look. I just chat. So just so you know, if you're going to use ChatGPT, this is what it's going to be. But anyway, uh, you're outsourcing your creativity. It's eating away, and I'm afraid to say, I feel like at some point, will colleges fund? Will they keep these courses? Will writing continue? Will it flourish? And will music courses flourish?
Right.
These things that feed the imagination and that are connected to
Right.
the
Right.
mystery of why we're here and who we are and how it's expressed. They are very much connected. And I am very people. Uh, I feel long-winded in all of what I'm saying here,
No, no, no. I get it.
but and because you've read a few of the books that
Yeah.
uh, I don't go after. I'm not writing a UFO book so that UFO people only will like it. Really, what I'm trying to do is to write about stuff that I love, and
Hmm.
I do love the ufology topic,
Right.
but to bring other people into the camp too,
Right.
and also to sort of bring people together, bring music people into the camp who are pretty much already there
Right. Right. Right.
anyway. I mean, if you're a musician, if you're a songwriter, you're getting dreams, and the Dakinis are speaking to you and giving you, like you said at the
Yeah.
beginning, the fully formed music composition and ideas.
Right.
But still, maybe people like music, and you know they like the arts. They went to college, or didn't, but they're a little bit uh, nervous about the UFO topic. I know because I've
Right.
written books on it, and
Yeah.
people would go like, UFOs. You really believe in that? And I don't get defensive. I just have a very sober conversation about the state of science and what we know,
Hmm.
what is unknown.
Hmm.
The 125-year-old uh, uh, concepts that were developed by Schrodinger and
Hmm.
Heisenberg that somehow they've been lost in the shuffle. It's like somehow we're still in a Newtonian kind of science world.
Right.
Uh, because I think maybe because it's a little scary. It's a little scary to feel like you don't know everything.
Right. Yeah, and
And
we always want
so,
to we always want to be able to do that or ask ChatGPT or something to be able to tell us. We look for the authority figure to tell us like religion,
yeah,
whatever, the college, whatever. So yeah, nobody wants to take their own, you know, yeah, yeah, I'm losing the word, but
initiative or yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah, to be able to do these things and be that. Um, but yeah, I think the conversation is definitely changing. I think, obviously
yeah,
the acclamation is there. It's getting out there more and more and more. And I think that, yeah, just having the conversation, right. And
yeah,
at least entertaining the idea, um, it goes a long way for all of it. And
yeah.
connecting these seemingly disparate things, are not really disparate. It's all intertwined.
You have to
And
try really hard to not know that something is afoot. You
yeah,
have Congress talking about this stuff. You have what's
yeah,
happened with the drones and just all
laws, yeah,
of
ever.
yeah, exactly. And David Grush coming out with this stuff, and
Yeah.
there's at least enough stuff to say. Pilots saying, "Well, we saw these things. They moved at Ryan Graves with these extraordinary claims that are backed by data."
Hmm.
I mean, how do Michio Kaku has said, well, the burden of proof is now on the government.
Yeah.
And actually, I don't really think it belongs with them because
No.
I think they have seen things, of course, and they've observed things and they've been very curious about it. And they're very, very curious. They have programs to investigate it, but they don't want to tell us too much because they're afraid to tell us too much for a few reasons. One is they don't understand it.
Hmm.
And I think the other thing is that they're trying to keep us away from our divinity,
Right. Of
from
course.
what the power we have. I mean, what if we have telekinetic powers that are greater than, the military might of the United States?
That'd be
Um,
awesome. I think that's true. I think we do. I really do. I think it's been kept from us. And I think when we are together and united, I think nothing can stop us as a, you know, race,
exactly,
and
exactly,
music is one of the things that does that, and honestly does.
exactly.
It does. Thank you for writing the book.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate you, John, for everything you do,
Oh,
and thank you
no.
for
Go buy this book.
inviting me on.
Go
Well,
look at
thank
it.
you.
Go hit
Yeah,
up Mike.
UFO
I'll put all this
Symphonic.
stuff. I'll put all this stuff in the description. But Mike has some copies. I'll try to get this out before February 1st. I promise. I'll try. But if
It's
it's
okay,
past
man. Thank you.
February 1st, you'll get it out. You'll get it anywhere probably, Mike's site. And if it's before then, hit Mike up. He'll hook you up, and maybe he'll even sign it for you. I don't know.
Absolutely. I absolutely will.
That's
But John,
rad.
you are a scholar and a gentleman, and it's always good to see you. And let's talk soon. We can just
Yeah.
speak and just say hello. It doesn't have to be
Uh,
for the
uh,
on the
a,
interwebs.
a 4 hour chat.
Yeah,
Thanks a bunch, man. Me too. I appreciate you, man. Thanks a bunch. Thanks for putting up with me.
I appreciate you. God bless. I'll talk
You too.
soon.
Okay,
Take
take
care,
care, man.
man.
Bye
Bye
bye.
bye.